What's up? Another episode of The Upgrade. My name is Gary Muttley. He is...
Len Carmichael, Landmine Studios. What's up, Gary?
Oh, it was quite the weekend.
I know. Another broken leg. Another COVID cough.
Yeah, I think I got COVID at Tompkins Square.
Well.
Oh, no. What will I do?
All right. I don't want to get into
before anybody takes me seriously, I'm totally full of shit.
I don't want to get too far into Tompkins Square just yet.
Yeah.
The UFC packed 16,000 people into an arena and didn't mandate masks at the very least. This is not an outdoor event. This is a arena with it's not an outdoor arena. People were sitting right next to each other. I understand they're trying to make money. I get it. But I feel like it's a little irresponsible.
Maybe just a little bit. But
I realize it's Florida. So they operate on a different plane than pretty much the rest of the world.
It's a whole room full of Florida man.
And, I watched the event. I did not pay for the event. Let's be very clear. I watched it, but I did not pay for it because Dana White can't have any of my money. Not one dime.
Well,
but I did watch it. And,
I watched the highlights.
The fights were good. I was disgusted at a point. And I'm not praising them for doing it in the venue that they did it. Like, I wish they had just stuck with their venue in Las Vegas where it's limited capacity. Even if they were selling seats for high price, but they were spacing people out in there, I would have nothing to say about it.
Right.
But to pack 16,000 people into a venue when we haven't proven that it's not spreadable, it just, I don't know, feels really irresponsible. I know that on the internet that people are complaining about the thing that happened at Tompkins Square Park, and I'm going to kind of equate the two.
Right.
And tie my thought pattern all together. I also think that overall, doing the show made sense, but some of the attendees were irresponsible. So, it's like I'm all for people doing whatever it is that they want to do, but there are things that have consequences with them. And I'm interested to see what the actual fallout will be in 2 to 6 weeks from now, and if people got sick or did not get sick. So here's what we know. COVID is real. There are new variants. There are at least 3 different territories of variants for COVID in general, and those variants are considered variants of interest, variants of concern, and variants of high consequence. Luckily, in the U.S., we don't have any variants of high consequence. But the issue is, as we continue to spread the disease by having more and more people get it, it will then mutate. And the mutations happen by passing it around. You pass it around by breathing on each other. You have 3,000 people in a park breathing on each other. I don't see how this doesn't go that direction. I'm not saying that it's going to cause a mutation, but somebody's going to get COVID. It just is what it is. And if you think that it's not going to happen, I would argue that you're wrong. And I would love to be proven wrong.
Well, before we go any further, I want to bring in our guest because I know he's got some opinions on this thing too, and then I'll, of course, have opinions because that's what I do. And he is somebody that I've mentioned on this podcast a couple of times. His name has come up, and I'm happy to finally get him on here because he happened to text me while I was at Tompkins, and we were chatting about other things like boneheads in the crowd. And all of a sudden I'm like, I've been meaning to ask you to come on the podcast. So here he is. And we worked out perfect timing. His name is Brian Diaz. He is well versed in the world of live events, having worked as a tech for Guns N' Roses, Fall Out Boy, plenty of other bands, and also being a performer as well for bands like Edna's Goldfish, and plenty more that we'll talk about.
Yeah.
In the next couple of hours.
Yeah.
Welcome, Brian.
What's up? How you guys doing?
Thanks for coming on, man.
Sorry, you caught me on a bad day. Normally I'm less irritated. I mean, and I don't want people to think that I don't think that they should have gone to the show or something like that. Just wear the fucking mask.
Well, here's the thing,
that's all
man.
I have to say.
I went through a roller coaster of feelings about this event, right? Because coming from my world, we were so careful this last year. We didn't do anything. I mean, none of the bands of any caliber were out doing tours, shows, nothing, unless it was in a fucking studio somewhere, just a live stream or something. So to see this happen, I was like, wow, things are actually turning around. We can actually get this to start happening. But when I saw the footage of it, I was like, man, this is not a good look, especially coming from a scene that I feel like overall, hardcore punk rock, whatever, just not mainstream scene, should be a little more I don't want to say educate's not the right word, but a little more receptive to following the measures to get shit going again, not just going out there and being fuck it, we're gonna go do this thing and no one's wearing masks and we slammed 3,000 people in a park. I don't know, I'm back and forth about it because I'm glad to see it happen, and I'm vaccinated. I'm fully got my shots.
I'm fully vaccinated.
I'm okay. I would have probably gone to the show and been okay with it. Would I be wearing a mask? Most likely, just because it's what I, I'm just, that's where I'm at right now with it. But I mean, you tell me this again in a year that this is happening and people are still looking down on it, then that's different. But right now, it just seems
too early.
It seems just slightly early for it to be that loose. You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying. Now here's where I look at it, because I was looking at it one way for a long time, and recently, my attitude. I don't want to say my attitude has changed, but I guess I've adjusted a little bit, and it's still kind of a work in progress, because months ago I would have been like, no.
Sure. I don't think months ago that wouldn't have even been something that came up, because we were still there's no fucking way. I didn't even know if we were going to be doing shows in 2021 at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And here's the thing, because I've seen a lot of people's attitudes about it.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys mentioned that you're vaccinated. I have made the choice to not talk about whether I got the vaccine or not, and I have reasons for that I'll get into later. But just when it comes to this event, it got me thinking, and I realized there's a lot of people that think that there's just going to be some magic gate that opens, and that suddenly one day they're going to say, okay, you're good to go, and then everything's going to go back to normal. Because even now, with the reduced capacities, there's a lot of places that aren't opening up because just financially it doesn't make sense. A lot of these smaller clubs, of these smaller clubs, their math just isn't going to work. And we've talked about this many times on this podcast. So that's a thing. And I think in the end, the way I've started to look at it now is that you're going to get people that are going to dip their toe in the water.
Someone has to.
And somebody, because honestly, talking about UFC 16,000 seat arena versus 2,000 or 3,000 in the park, that's a dip of a toe compared to a full foot. But I understand why people would be resistant to that. But I think in the end, we're dealing with something that nobody has ever fucking dealt with before. And I've always been one to say, the science is there. And one of the things that I've started to realize, and I've said this before about nutrition, but it's starting to come up with other things. which is that they tell you that something's good for you, and then suddenly there's a thing that tells you the same thing is bad for you. And there was a recent study talking about, it was done by MIT, talking about whether it's 6 feet or 60 feet, it doesn't matter. If it's indoors, you're at risk. And I saw that and I was like, well, fuck. Because even if I don't necessarily believe it, you know there's going to be plenty of people that believe it because they believe a lot dumber shit.
Totally.
Another thing that has been a subject many times on this podcast and many others and a lot of news outlets as well. So the way I see it is if you don't want to go, that's cool. But I think it's a combination of people are just dying to get the fuck out. And also somebody's got to dip their toe in.
Yeah,
and I don't think there's any right answer to it. And
I've said it before though. I was like, you know, what is the end of this going to look like when it comes to live events, whether it's music or a fight or sporting events, whatever. And sports, they can operate without a crowd.
Right.
They get
many
a
times.
gazillion dollars from sponsors.
Right.
My world doesn't get shit. So like if we don't have an arena that's 80% full or more, we can't do a show. Like they're just bleeding money. There's a ton of expense in it. So I'm like, this seems like it shouldn't have to be like an on and off switch. Maybe at some point it's like this on off switch, like, all right, we're ready to go. We can just jam 15,000 people in an arena, no masks, no whatever. That just seems crazy to me. That seems, you're right. It seems a lot more crazy than people outside in a park, which at the same time, and it seems like, all right, this isn't the smartest thing, but it's also like you can choose to do this or not. Like, I don't know. I mean, all of it is a choice. All of it, ultimately, when it comes down to it, like people are choosing to go to sit in an arena and watch a fight, or they can sit out, be outside on top of one another at a hardcore show. It's like, I don't know what makes one right and what makes one wrong, other than one of them is like 8 times as many people indoors. It's just I don't know. We don't know the safety of that yet.
Here's another thing that I have a unique perspective on being in New York City. Mm-hmm. First of all, I go to work a couple of days a week downtown, and I get on the subway. And if you think people are staying 6 feet away from each other on the subway, you're out of your fucking mind. No way. It's not. I will say the subways are a lot less crowded than they usually are, which is something we talked about on a recent episode of the podcast where we were talking about, I used to have to take the train further up in the Bronx to come down.
I listened to that. I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. Like, backtracking to go forward.
Yeah, but that's just what I had to do, especially going to Brooklyn when I used to work in Brooklyn. So that's number one. Number two, before the show, during the show, after the show, that whole area around where Tompkins is a very popular area. There's a lot of restaurants, a lot of bars. Oh, yeah. That place was popping the whole time. After the show, we went to get something to eat. After that, we walked up to 14th Street. And let me tell you, every place that we walked by that was open, every restaurant, because all the bars have to serve food now because that's the only way to survive. So every place that we walk by, because they all have outdoor seating too, packed. Streets, packed. Sidewalks, packed. Everything's packed. So what a lot of people don't realize, because I see a lot of people talking shit online, what a lot of people don't realize is that New York is going. Like, New York ain't stopping. And
dude, it's like that here too.
I'm sure.
This is like the last place to like open anything up. And you know how California is. It's going to be like, it's always the benchmark for over caution, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So like this shit could be done and we'll still be eating outside and no one's sitting inside places. Like they just like in the last couple of weeks started opening stuff up. Like I ate indoors at a restaurant and I was like almost in tears. I was like, holy shit, I forgot what it's like to have someone come to your table and like bring you food that isn't me.
Everything was closed out there for over a year, right?
Dude, everything was closed. Like bars started kind of opening up a little bit. So, you know, there was a few spots outside. And like we're lucky because you can have year round, you know, in November, December, we could sit outside, you know, we could do that all year. But it took a while to get to that. And like all these spots turned their parking lots and stuff into, you know, patios and whatever.
Yeah.
And now with things being open inside a little bit, like, for, you know, some restaurant you can sit inside and there's a few bars you can sit and drink in. Like now it just feels like 90% normal. And the world is, and you're right. The world is just going like shit's just right now. It's just like you go to Hollywood right now, just popping off right now. You go to, you know, Silver Lake, Echo Park. There's people everywhere in all these places sitting and eating, drinking, like nothing's going on, you know? And that's just how it is. Like my girlfriend was saying the other day, she went out, she was like, the world is just like open again. I'm like, yeah, like we're, you know, that's just how it is.
Well, I think it's at the point now where people are, I was talking before about like dipping your toe in. I think a lot of people are just going to kick the door in because people are dying. Like, because here's another part of it. Well, two parts of it. First of all, we've talked many times about people that are going through the shit that you're going through. Dudes that work for dudes that are in touring bands or work for bands, or like I have friends that do lighting for Broadway shows. Same shit.
Man.
And a lot of the guys in your boat have been fucked for over a year.
Sure.
Because it's like all of a sudden it comes to a screeching halt. And there's plenty of people that have had to find other ways to make money to feed their families. And
there are people that I've worked with for years who are just not coming back to touring.
Yeah.
Because it's like, they're like, well, I do make more money touring, but right now I have this steady job. I stay home. I got a 401k. I got health insurance for the first time. And there's a lot of people getting that stuff for the first time ever. And they're making half of what they used to make. But there's just uncertainty. We don't know when we're going to come back. And we don't know if we come back right now, like everything starts up again and some wild shit happens that like a concert causes an outbreak. That's it. Live Nation will pull everything.
We'll be and then done. You're back to where you started.
Oh my God. Yeah.
We've talked about that a lot because, I mean, we started this podcast not long after COVID. Sure. You know, our first episode was up in June, and we've steady talked about the different effects of COVID, and it just so happens because we're connected to music and the music scene, and we have a lot of friends that do, you know, go on tour and live on tour, that everybody's in deep shit. And a lot of people, just like what you just said, that like they got a different job, they don't make as much money, but they have the security and they know they're not going to go out for 2 weeks and then suddenly get pulled back.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Sucks. I think that's what's really, I think, in the, you know, in the big scheme, the grand scheme. So like, just as a backstory, or like just, you know, information, like last summer, the big tour that I was supposed to be doing was I worked for Fall Out Boy. That's my main artist that I work for. Yeah. But we were doing that Green Day and it was Green Day and Weezer and Fall Out Boy.
I remember that.
And, you know, we were supposed to do like Dodger Stadium and Citi Field and all, you know, like just like, you know, all baseball stadiums, massive places. So, you know, everything starts crumbling and it's like, well, you know, are we going to be okay? Because we're still outdoors, and maybe we can go at like 80% cap, then 70, and then it was like, yeah, this isn't happening. And we were supposed to go to Europe, we were supposed to go to Australia, and we're just like, you know, there's people just hemorrhaging money. Like the bands, I mean, they're well off people because they've made their money, but they also have no income right now.
Right.
You know, like we haven't done anything. We did one live stream, and it's like, how long can you hold on? You know, I don't expect some of the people that I worked with to hold on, for till 2021 maybe. They don't know. There's no certainty.
Right.
Like we're still like, yeah, I guess we're rolling this summer like we're supposed to, in July, but what happens if July rolls around and
you don't know.
We haven't figured it out,
Yeah. And I know plenty of people in the same boat. I know plenty of dudes that are in touring bands and have had to go and get regular jobs, and now they're just like, I don't think I'm going to be able to go out anymore. Not like we used to.
I didn't do it. I tried a couple things, but still, I'm still holding out. I'm lucky though. I'm just lucky because I work for, maybe like higher profile artists. So I know that, and then, truth be told, they took care of me last summer. They were like,
that's awesome.
There's a lot of bands that didn't take care of their crew, but also just couldn't afford it. These guys were like, we were able to get some money, so we're going to make sure you guys are taken care of, at least for part of it, And I assume if the shit hits the fan again this summer, like, it'll be the same thing. I mean, I obviously I can't live an entire year off of, a month of pay, but it's nice to know that people are looking out for you, like it isn't, you're not just out there, like they're trying to figure it out too. They don't know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah. It's a big mess because all those guys, like they're used to doing big tours and stuff too.
Yeah. We would spend, they slowed down a little bit now that, everybody's older and has family and stuff, but like, we would go 8 months a year, on tour to go from, that's like going from, 70 miles an hour to dead stop overnight. Exactly. And no one knows, like, we're like, I don't know if this is going to happen again. Like, I text with the guys in the band. They're just like, yeah, well, when it happens, it happens. We don't know. Like, everyone's just trying to figure it out. So.
And the smaller bands too, because
that's
one of our early episodes, we had Pat from Fit for an Autopsy on.
Okay.
And he was just talking about it's so weird to be home for this long. And like he's so used to going out and being out for long periods of time, but he was opening a tattoo shop, so at least he had that to keep himself busy.
At least those guys, man, they like bands like that. That's like their entire. That's really just their whole income because they're not. Yeah. Fit for an Autopsy is not selling 1 million records a year.
Right.
And bands like Fall Out Boy, they can release singles and make some kind of money off of it, even when they're not touring. But like
do the licensing stuff, which is
regular
where the money comes in.
Like regular working bands, like working musicians, like bands that like in a van and trailer touring around, like that might be the only money that they make off of music at all. And then what happens? Like, what do you do with your band? Do you break up your band? Do you like? I don't know. It's so many unanswered. So much unanswered bullshit.
Here's the direction I was going in, talking about all of this stuff and breaking the door down. There's a mental health aspect to all that shit.
Oh yeah.
Because here you are, you're working, supporting yourself, supporting your family, whether you got a wife, you got kids, whatever, and all of a sudden everything just drops out. And that happened not just for people that were in the music business, that happened for a lot of other people. A lot of people worked in the restaurant business and suddenly dropped out. A lot of people are tired of being cooped up and they can't deal with it. And one of the things that I noticed is for people that went to that Tompkins show, and I saw it when I was there, and I seen it all over social media afterwards, is that, there's issues with the whole thing as far as potential exposure and this and that, but I didn't see one person that was at that show that wasn't fucking blown out ecstatic about it.
Yeah, they haven't seen shit like that in a year.
And it wasn't even just the music. Like, I know, for me even, I was happy to be out and be with my people.
Yeah.
Because there were plenty of people that I hadn't seen, in over a year. I mean, the last show my band played was in the end of February, I think.
Yeah.
So, here you go. I haven't been out to a show in months and months. And that was good for a lot of people. Whether there's a bad aspect to it as far as exposure and stuff like that, we'll find out eventually. But I think the mental health aspect of this thing is that sooner or later, people are just going to kick that door open because they can't handle not having interaction anymore.
I'll tell you, man.
And it's weird, but
it's true. And I'll tell you too, like, I know it's only a year out from this, like, everything kind of falling apart, but like, I have no idea what the long-term mental damage this has done to me. Like, I'm a pretty level-headed person. I've done, you've known me for now, since 95. Like, I'm not aggro, I'm not whatever, but like, this was like the first year where I was like, things were so fucking out of my control, and like, I just couldn't get my life. I just wanted my life back, I still want my life back. I want the things that I worked my entire, 20 years now of touring. Like, I built that up. That's like anybody working in an office or whatever job they have for 20 fucking years, and just have it ripped away from you, and you just have no answers. Yeah. And like, I know in the back of my head that yes, it is coming back at some point, but this gap and whatever, and like, I don't know what it's going to do to me. I don't know what it's going to be like the first time I get in a tour bus and I'm like in a box with like 10 other dudes. And I'm going to be fine. I mean, like, it's going to be weird at first, but like, I don't know, man. I don't know what this year did to me. Who knows? Who knows how it's going to manifest?
It's had that effect on a lot of people, because I know a lot of people with kids that their kids have been home, and it has a major effect on them, just not being able to interact. And it's funny because I was wondering about that when I was at the show. I was thinking to myself, I wonder if anybody got here and got freaked out and left. And I haven't seen anybody mention that, but I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't blame them either. Because,
well, no one's going to mention that. You'll have fucking JJ calling you a pussy, dude.
Oh, my God.
You might have to edit that out. I don't want him coming after me.
I mean, listen, dudes have opinions, and that's fine.
Yeah,
one of the things that drives me crazy is some of these groups on Facebook and other social media. Like, some of these guys run their mouth a little much, and
yeah, they forget that they're behind all this shit that they're talking. There's like some dude that'll turn you into fucking sand. Like,
yeah, I don't know. For me, like,
it's a lot of loudmouths. It's like, yeah, I get it. Like, so you look at that scene in general. You're like, yeah, it's a Madball show, Murphy's Law. It's a bunch of hardcore dudes, and they're being fucking knuckleheads or whatever. But it's like, you also don't know. I don't know. What if half that crowd is vaccinated? I don't know that. You don't know. Well, you don't know that this. I'm not saying that that's like a possibility, but like, maybe it is. I don't know.
It might be. Who knows? New York. A lot of people have been vaccinated, but here's the thing. Like, here's the thing. Whether you're at Tompkins Square Park,
or you're out in like,
whether you're
at Village or whatever,
you're in the arena watching UFC, or whether you're out at a restaurant or wherever you are you ever really going to know that you're in a totally safe spot? There's always going to be a risk.
There's always going to be a risk, and it's really coming down now. Like, at some point, I've mentioned, at some point, you have to do what is best for you. You need to take responsibility. At some point, when we reach a certain percentage of people who are fully vaxxed, whatever, the onus of the responsibility shifts from me doing the right thing to protect you to now it's you need to do what's right for you. And you can't tell me that I can't go to a show or that I have to walk. I'm like, even the mask thing right now is getting to a point where it's like, okay, if I go walk from here to the park or whatever in my house and there's no one around and it's the middle of the night or whatever and there's no one out, like, I'm not putting a mask on. Like, I'm not I'm not an anti anything, but that's a ridiculous thing to have to do. Again, fully vaxxed. I get tested for work or whatever. I know things are cool. I'm not around anyone. I'm outside. All the science is in my favor here. Like, I'm not trying. Like, listen, if I go to Target or something and they're like, put a mask on, like, absolutely.
Right.
I'm going to follow whatever you need me to do, but some things just seem a little ridiculous. Like when I drive down the freeway and I look over and I see someone in their car, 2 masks on, a face shield, and gloves driving their car. I'm like, what are you doing? Are you transporting plutonium? Like, what's going on? Like, what's in your car, man? Like, there is a point of maybe a little too cautious, and I get it because it's we're living in a fucking weird time.
And I totally understand that.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, and this is what I alluded to before. One of the reasons why I don't want to talk about whether I got the vaccine or not, and Malone from Billy Club mentioned this, and somebody else probably came up with the phrase also, but we refer to it as vaccine bullying, because now suddenly all these people are like, well, I'm not going to hang out with you unless you get the vaccine. Because I understand, I said this a few times on here, I understand why people are hesitant about the vaccine. But there's, when it comes to all the shit that led to it with Trump and all that bullshit, there's a whole big mess there. And usually these things take years. And I understand why people are hesitant about it. It's a personal choice. But now I see all these people on their high horse. I never seen so many hardcore people suddenly become cops. Like, oh, well, they're not vaccinated, they're not this, they're not, and it's just like,
I want to. Here's the deal. I wanted it for me. I don't care what anybody else does. I know that it, at least for me, who knows if this shit works? I don't know. It made me feel like shit, but right. I mean, I guess that means it works, to some extent.
I'll never tell anybody don't get it.
Yeah,
I think it's a personal choice, but I think there's. And listen, the other thing that I laugh about is that some of these people are on their high horse about that thing, and they're the same dudes that are sniffing crazy lines.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, oh, well, now you're worried about what you're putting in your body? Like, don't get on your high horse with me about that shit. Like, give me a break.
I've had that's a discussion we've had.
How much
times.
dust have you smoked? Stop. But that's another thing, and I see that a lot with the vaccine. And I see it with masks and stuff like that too. And I think we're at the point now where things are getting weirder, talking about like the outdoor, that they might loosen up things for outdoor stuff. But then also the study that I mentioned before, where it's 6 feet or 60 feet. I work with the public. So when I'm back in the office full time, there's a risk there. That's just reality.
Sure.
And I know other people, there's other dudes in my own band that work with the public and have that same risk and have had potential exposures and had to quarantine until they got tested. There's probably going to be more of that. And it's not going to be, like I said, it's not just going to be like, okay, today's the day, everything's good. There's going to be steps, and since it's something that's so uncharted territory, some of those steps are probably going to be missteps. Is Tompkins a misstep? I don't know. We'll find out. It may be, it may not be.
We'll know at some point.
I had the attitude of like, oh, well, they do these things like, hopefully everybody gets sick, because otherwise, who knows, and nobody's going to believe the science, which is a whole other intelligence problem that we deal with. But I think as the vaccine gets out more, I think attitudes are going to have to ease up a little bit, because there's going to be people that have the vaccine, and there's people that are going to be out that don't have the vaccine.
There's still people there's been people since this shit started that have been wilding out the whole time. They didn't give a fuck and never got sick somehow. They're always like, they just float through life, like nothing ever affects them, and they're still doing it. And like, this shit's going to end and it's never going to affect them. And they're going to just be the people who say, see, I told you so. And meanwhile, on the other side, I have friends. I have one particular friend who the dude's basically a fucking hermit when he's not on tour. Mm-hmm. And he lives in I want to say he maybe lives in the Bronx. You know Lou, merch guy Lou. Lou Benavides. He's toured with like
rings a bell.
He toured with like Quicksand. He's like down with like Walter and like that crew people.
Sounds very familiar. I've probably at least met him.
Yeah,
well,
he's
at the very
around.
least, I'm sure I've been in the same room with him.
Right. He is the kind of dude who's like, fuck being outside. I love being inside. He's like, I'm fucking thriving right now. I love being inside. And everything was cool. And he's like, he had to have some medical procedure. I don't remember what it was, but in the time frame of that happening, he got COVID and he got it really fucking bad. Like, he literally got out of the hospital like a week or two ago. Wow. Been on oxygen. Like, this is a healthy guy, like a otherwise healthy, right. Younger than me, like not someone who should be like, well, my lungs are damaged for good now, Yeah. And that's like the flip side of it. Like someone who was so careful and still fucking got it anyway. You know what I mean? Like, so it's all just random chance. So like me, it's been like, I'll do whatever it takes to be cautious. If I get it, maybe I had it. I don't know. Like there's definitely a lot of people who are just like, yeah, I had that shit back in last May, and like, did you? I don't know. Like, you don't know that. You never got tested for it. And there's a lot of people who said that to you. They were just like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I had it back in February of 2020. It's like, okay, then maybe you did. Doesn't mean that you just get a free pass to just do whatever now.
Oh no, of course not. we Len and I have talked about it. We both think that we may have had it even before it was a known thing.
Yeah, I know plenty of people who I'm positive. They're like, the way they describe it, they're like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I had it. I know people who got it early on in like, March, like right when the shit was popping off in New York, like when things were really bad in New York. I knew a handful of people that got it. Some of them are long-term. Some of them just got a little sick, Yeah.
And I have friends and family who were super cautious and still got it.
Yeah.
But then I know other people that are reckless as fuck, have always been reckless as fuck, and they're fine.
I would like to think that the crowd at Tompkins was the reckless as fuck doesn't get it crowd, because if nothing else, it helps my cause for me to be like, so look, they had a show with 2,000, 3,000, whatever people there, and they were people right on top of each other, and no one's in mask, and like wasn't any real outbreak, so maybe we can really start doing this thing,
Right.
I look at it that way.
What I want to say is that that's what I want to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the episode, I'm thinking about it from a completely sober mind based on the facts around the disease of which we think we know.
We know a lot more now than we did a year ago. Right. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Based on what we think we know, it just seemed a little reckless. But I hope that nobody gets sick. I don't want anybody to get sick. Like that's not my end goal. And what I would love for it to happen is that shows go back to normal, that Brian can get back on the road, and that things can just regulate themselves. I'm still on the fence. I know there are shows that are outdoors that are going on, and there are some coming up. And in fact, there's one in particular that I've sort of been asked to play. And I'm on the fence about even doing it for various reasons.
Right.
But if I do it, I will play with a mask on because I'm going to choose to make that choice for myself. I don't know. I'm torn on it. You've
mentioned it before, and I'll mention it just to point out the example here. Everybody has their own situation. You've talked about having to take care of your dad.
He's 86, and he just recovered from tuberculosis last February. And he's got dementia. He's on a feeding tube, and he's not really well. So for me, I need to make sure that I'm not dragging anything into his house.
Exactly.
Number one, I'm pretty sure, and Gary alluded to this, But in November 2019, I went to Disney, the crossroads of the world. And upon returning from Disney, within 7 days, I was in the hospital. And I ended up going to the hospital twice, and they told me that I had a virus that they could not tell me what it was. We don't know what this is, sir, but you're really sick. They gave me all kinds of different meds, and I got worse. I ended up with Bell's palsy. The whole left side of my body stopped working. Every night that I laid down, or even if I sat still too long, my lungs sounded like they were crackling. I couldn't breathe.
Jesus.
I was coughing. I ended up coughing straight through till February.
Yeah, and that was November.
That was November.
COVID wasn't really talked about.
No. But, just because it wasn't talked about, they didn't know what it was.
Right.
But they tested me for every variant of the flu. And they tested me for every variant of every virus that they thought that they could come up with, and they had nothing. And they were like, "Sir, you just have a virus, and you're going to have to ride this out." And that's what I was told. That was November 18th of 2019, and by the 25th, I was back in the hospital again. I ended up getting MRIs. It was, I ended up having to stay a night. It was bad.
Gnarly.
But they didn't give me oxygen because they didn't know that that's what needed to happen. Because they didn't know what the fuck they were dealing with yet.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, I think I've already had it.
That's a good case for that, for sure. Because when I say like people say that they had it, they
were just like, I was sick.
Oh yeah, like maybe they did have the flu or something, whatever. I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm like, COVID sounds like anybody who's got it sounds it sounds closer to what you just described.
Yeah.
Literally, there were like 6 days where I was like, I'm not sure I'm going to wake up in the morning. And I was going to bed, and like my girlfriend was sleeping next to me, and she's like, all night all you did was cough and wheeze, and you were making this like ungodly noise from your chest. And I'm like, yeah, I have nothing for you. I'm just trying to survive over here. I actually didn't even go to work. I didn't even go to work for 3 weeks. It wasn't a vacation. I just worked from home because I was like, I don't know what I have, and I don't want to bring it into the office.
Yeah.
Gnarly.
It's crazy.
And and that's like, Disney. Like that's like,
Yeah,
I mean,
the crossroads of the world.
That's like, anybody from anywhere in the world could have been there and brought that there.
Exactly.
Oh, sure.
That's fucked up.
And everybody's touching everything. And
and
they weren't cleaning rooms the way that they have to clean rooms now. You're eating in galley style restaurants, like
kids sneezing all over everything.
Yeah, and then I'm riding in airplanes and taxis and buses and this, that, and the other thing. Yeah. I'm just in the thick of places where I could have easily gotten it. So I get back from Disney, and I go about my life, and by the following Thursday, because I got back on a Thursday, by the following Thursday, I losing taste in my mouth. I had no taste all the way until the new year. Just the whole left side of my face gave up. I am pretty fucking sure I had it. There's nothing else that would have caused this.
That's nothing is comparable to that, really.
Right.
That's like, that's what that's what they describe.
Yeah, so, and that was before it was even really being talked about here.
So between that and getting the vaccination, and as of today is my 14th day.
There you go.
Post the vaccination, so I'm at my maximum level of, whatever coverage for
immunity or
whatever the fuck they're going to call it, because at some point they're going to say, oh, you need a booster, so I'll go get the fucking booster, and it'll be
that's already being talked about.
I'm not.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. It's going to be like getting a flu shot, though. Like in a few,
right?
Once, like that's the thing is that, like, as far as the science goes, like if this is something that we're just living with, eventually it'll be something that's manageable. And it's like, I've never in my life gotten a flu shot. Like
Me either.
That's not something I've never thought about it. I'm like, knock on wood. Like I'm a very like, I don't treat myself healthy, but like stay healthy somehow, and I rarely get sick. If I get a fucking headache, it like takes me out because I'm like never like that. Yeah. So yeah, I don't, like the flu shot wasn't even a thought for me, but this was like something different where I was like, well, if this is what gets me out to the other side, then fuck it. Like I'm just kidding.
So, yeah, I mean, one of the big problems is that it looks like it's going to be required for a lot of things eventually.
There's a lot of stuff that's required though.
Yeah,
for the most part. So you can't let's just say, for instance, you had a kid and the kid wants to go to a summer camp. The summer camp is going to require that you have your MMR vaccine, you have your your diphtheria vaccine, you're this and you're that and your other thing. And if you think you had the chickenpox, don't show up. And it's just another thing on the list that we are aware of that we need to be vigilant against. I don't want to force anybody to get a vaccine if they don't want to do it, but I do believe that everybody should do it anyway for the good of everyone. Right. And it's your choice, and I'm not telling you have to, but I would prefer it. That's all. Like I can't make you do it, and I'm not going to stand on a soapbox and tell you you're wrong for not doing it. But it's just my personal opinion that I think for the good of the herd, you should.
There is a lot of talk about this in the touring world, and like as far as like crew members or whatever, there's a lot of artists that are probably not going to hire crew back that's not vaxxed.
I was wondering about that.
It's their choice.
Yeah, one of the things. Yeah, so we're talking about like we're still like as far as everyone knows, we're still moving ahead with the summer tour the way it is. We're just like if the dates are happening, like we need to book hotels and all this shit needs to get done, whether it happens or not. That's another story. But like, well, it's just got to have to happen. But one of the questions I was asked, we got this group email. It's like you don't have to, obviously don't respond to everybody, but they were like, "Are you available for this summer? And did you get your shots?" And I hit up my production manager separately, and he's a fairly conservative guy. Like he lives in New Hampshire. That has anything to do with it, but like I'm like not saying like far right or whatever, but he's like like a lot of people in the touring world are actually surprisingly like fall into like a weird right of center, where I'm like okay, I'm like. That's strange, but also I tour with a lot of people from all over the country. Like a lot of people from the South and whatever, and they're know, whatever. And when I hit him up personally, I was like, "Hey man, I'm like I just to let you know, like I got my shot, so I'm cool. I'm ready to roll whenever." And he's like, "Cool." He's like, that means everyone's vaccinated." And I was like in a weird way surprised that he was, but I think he just wants his job back so badly because he's like. He's the kind of like, I'm not saying I love the guy. I've known him for years, and like we can have civil arguments about things or civil discussions about things. Right. And I always felt like maybe like that was something that was like low key, like he wasn't going to talk about, but he was like, yeah, I got, we're all good here. Like, and I feel like maybe some of those attitudes are changing, but I get on those Facebook groups, man, like the crew roadie groups, whatever, and they're just all over they're like a mess, man. And people are like fighting about this and fighting about that, and all of a sudden everyone's a fucking doctor. Everyone knows the science, Everybody, and it's fucking wild. Like everyone became a doctor, and then the George Floyd thing happened, and then everyone was a lawyer, or everyone was a fucking cop, or everyone was an activist. It's like, man, you guys have a lot of time on your hands. Meanwhile, I'm like I don't know. I'm just kind of trying to stay out of the mix of all of this. Like, just whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's always the way. You're watching cops and they get arrested, and then suddenly, I know my rights.
Yeah, you're a legal expert, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Overall, this show is my only outlet for any of that stuff. I try to keep my keyboarding to a minimum. I can't do it.
It's just so poisonous at this point.
It's so poisonous, man.
Especially for somebody like me, because I'm not one of these dudes. Like, to me, if I'm talking to you online, I'm not going to talk to you any different than I would talk to you in person. So when I see these people get wild, talking about this Tompkins shit, these people are wild, and I guarantee you that if they were in front of any of the people that were at that show or performing at that show, they would not be talking that wild shit.
You know, someone brought that up. They were like, you know, it goes two ways, because it's like, you would never say any of that shit to Freddie Madball or to Hoya to their face. But someone did bring up the point. They're like, you know what though? Like those guys aren't the same dudes that they were 25 years ago. Like they're a little bit more grown up now. Like you probably could have some sort of rational discussion about it. I mean, who knows what their comeback's going to be to that. I mean, at this point, you can't have no one's talking to John Joseph about it anymore. Like that dude's just set and like he's pushing his weird fucking agenda. He's got his whole thing. Like that might be, to me, the most problematic thing of the whole fucking day is that you get this guy who's just like pushing this fucking weird thing, and it's like, you know what, man? Like people are here by choice, whether they feel safe or they don't feel it, whatever it is. Like, don't add that to it too, because that just takes this thing and gives it a fucking weird, bad look to it, you know? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got their own opinions. For me, I would not, just like we've been talking about, I would not get on anybody, because some people were like, oh, all right, if you didn't come, good, we didn't miss you, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm not coming off like that. Like, if you didn't want to go, if you had your reasons, like, I'm not shitting on anybody for that. Like, everybody's got their own situations, just like we were talking about with Len's situation.
Totally.
So you do what you got to do for you. And I'm totally fine. Like, I'm not going to knock people for that. But, like, some of these dudes just talk mad shit. And I'm just like,
so this thing was going around. And you were there, so you would know. Uh-huh. You see this firsthand, or maybe you didn't see this firsthand. There's this thing going around, and it's again, people talking shit that weren't there, but they're like, well, I heard this, I heard blah blah blah. Like, I heard that people were going around just mocking people for wearing masks, or like giving people shit, or taking telling them to take it off or whatever. I'm like, nope, man, I just feel like that's just so like, maybe that happened, maybe it happened somewhere, but like, there's no way you policed 3,000 people of every single person and said like, oh, that guy's giving this guy shit, this guy's quote unquote bullying this person about it. Like, I don't know, man. Like, that just seems unlikely, because even when to go back, like, so in October I went on a little road trip. Me, Christian McKnight, and Tom Sheehan went on a little. I saw
Christian on Saturday.
Christian was there. Yeah. I text him because I was just like, are you at this Tompkins thing, or like what's going on, whatever. And so me, Christian, and Tom from Indecision, we went to Moab, Utah.
Okay.
We flew into Seattle and then drove, just the three of us. At the time it was like, we tested, we're all negative, we could be in a car together. Drove to Moab, and like, that stretch from Seattle to Moab, Utah, there's not a lot of masks going on. Not a lot of like, it's like they didn't believe in that at the time. Like, Utah was really popping off. Like, like it was so bad that Christian and Tom were afraid they weren't going to be able to fly back home.
Oh, wow.
From Salt Lake without quarantining, because they were like, these states require a quarantine if you travel back. And I was flying back to LA from Seattle because I had to bring the car back. So like, I was by myself from Salt Lake to Seattle. By choice, I was like, I want to go on a little solo, clear my head road trip. And let me tell you, like, if anyone was going to give me shit about, wearing a mask or whatever, it would have been in that time. And that's like hardcore fucking like people out there that are, waving the MAGA flag and no one was wearing masks. And I'm like, I'd walk into a gas station and, people look at you funny, but no one's like giving you shit about it. So I doubt that in a park with a bunch of people who honestly, man, they're there to see the bands play. They're not there to fucking go there to give everybody a hard time.
Right.
And like, I'm like, I wonder where that narrative came from. Like, why is that?
Came from the internet.
Used?
Well, it came from the internet, and there's another factor here, which, Brian, coming from New York and now living in LA, I'm sure you understand. And if you're a sports fan, you'll really understand this.
Sure.
The other factor in all of this is New York hate. Because you and I both know, if you're a Yankee fan, if you're a Met fan, if you're a Knicks fan.
Pointing at my Yankees hat, you can't see it.
Exactly. Everybody hates New York. Everybody loves to talk mad shit about New York, and it's been happening forever. Because if you watch like hockey, like I do, the refs would call a lot of shit against the Rangers and shit like that, or the Yankees would get a bad call. Always the way. So it just extends to that like Facebook group message board world where people love to talk a lot of shit about, New York, those fucking idiots.
Yeah.
Because I saw tons of that talking about, what would you expect from a New York hardcore crowd? Like,
yeah, and that was the thing that I kind of like. I knew I was kind of poking the bear with it, but I opened up a Facebook thread about it. I was like, let's talk about this thing. I'm like, this is something that, because just by nature of my job and my friends, whatever, like, a lot of people that I'm friends with knew about this show. They know what I'm referring to when I said the Tompkins Square, the Madball show, whatever. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like I was like, I'm opening this up for discussion. I don't want anybody fighting. I don't want argument. Like, I'm sure this is I was like, I'm sure everyone's gonna be really fun and loving to each other. Like, we're not. Yeah.
Sure.
And you know what? For the most part, it actually was, because like a lot of people were like, you know what? I would go if it was up to me, and I felt I was okay with it. And then there's other people who were like, I don't feel comfortable yet. I would like to go. I would like to do something like that at some point. I'm just not quite there yet. And then, of course, it had to be a couple people who were like, like this is the numbers and blah blah blah. Like I have one friend who's like overly cautious. He's a New York guy. He lives in Puerto Rico right now. Right. Where Puerto Rico got hit fucking hard. I mean, it's an island country that's like, and tourists were coming there, bringing their fucking bullshit there. Like, so it was like,
I mean, finances is also part of that.
Yeah, but so he was like, and he's a scientist. So he's like, to him, numbers are everything. And I do trust him. Like, back in fucking March, he called it. He was like, we're going to be doing this shit until this time. He's like, I'm telling you right now, I know how this works. This is what's going to happen. And he was a little more like on the science end, and there's like the people who were scared. And then I had Florida Man chime in. Like, he's like, like I had all stripes. And I'm like, in a weird way, it kind of made me proud that I have this many fucking weirdo friends. Yeah. But like, also I was like, man, like, there is no one real answer. That's the thing, is that like right now, there is no one thing that's like right or wrong. It's just like right or wrong for you at the time. Right. So,
well, the other thing with that too is your audience, because those are all people that people that you're friends with. You get into these groups and you're talking to a bunch of strangers. These strangers pop off at the mouth like nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm just like I had to remove myself from a few of these groups, and I talked about it a while ago. It's not a new thing. It's new with the COVID stuff, and like especially with this Tompkins show. But I've had to remove myself from other groups. I talked about it on an episode recently that like I had to leave a Star Wars group because they just would not stop fighting about Gina Carano. And I'm like,
I thought you were going to say we're going to stop fighting about like. I mean, here's the thing: is like no groups are fun anymore because everything is turned into politics, COVID, fucking whatever like, the hot topic is, and you're just like, God damn it! I'm like even like I'm like I do photo work, I'm a photographer, or whatever. Like, and some of these photography groups, like, I was posting photos of protests and stuff, and people were like, "It's fucked up. You got this cop car on fire and blah blah blah." And I'm like, Jesus Christ! This is a photo group. I'm sharing photos, man. Like, I don't want this to be I came here to get away from that, but
Right, but that's what I
whatever.
mean. Like, I'm in this Star Wars group, and everybody's back and forth fighting about Gina Carano. I'm like, I just want to talk about how Jar Jar sucks, okay? Get the fuck out of here.
Can we all agree on how
Yeah,
Jar Jar sucks?
can we all get along and talk about how Jar Jar
Hey,
sucks?
you want to know? You want to know something? Because of COVID, I was able to watch all of Star Wars for the first time ever in my life. I know that sounds crazy because I'm
Oh,
almost
you're one of
45
those
years old.
people.
No, it's just something that I was never. I know. See,
You
here
just
we
never.
go.
I understand.
It never struck me, whatever. And I was finally like, a friend of mine had them all on his Plex server, and he was like, "If you want," he's like, "you can watch all of them." I watched all of them in theatrical release order,
Nice.
and I can tell you now, Jar Jar sucks.
The absolute worst. Like,
Oh, yo,
for as
but also,
bad
like-
as other things have been in that series, Jar Jar is the thing that makes me the most angry.
Yeah.
Dude, between Jar Jar and was it Watto? Is that the dude who's the
Yeah.
the storekeeper, like
The
fly looking
storekeep-
dude?
Yeah.
I was like, yo, this shit's mad racist. Like, what's the deal here, man?
Yeah,
they
it
were
gets-
just they were
those
just getting away with
prequels-
some weird shit.
Those prequels get a little weird.
Yeah, I'll
I-
tell you, like, after watching, 4, 5, 6, and then going, like, I was like, I'm gonna do it in release order. Dude, I almost tapped out after 2. I was like, I don't know if I can do this, like Clone Wars or whatever. I was like, yo, I'm not. I don't know what's up with this. I do not.
Yeah,
I'm not.
well,
Attack of the Clones.
1 and 2,
Attack of the Clones,
one
yeah.
and 2 are
1 and
by
2.
far just a horrible
It's
movie.
rough.
3 is doable all the way to the end. They wrecked
That's
it
what
right at
that
the
got
end.
me back into it because I was like, all right, well now I can see it kind of going.
Yeah, the end is the payoff on 3 because that's
right.
the moment. That's the moment. Explaining it as a Star Wars nerd
Yeah.
who saw the first
You
one when I
have
was.
to go very basic with me, but that's okay.
Yeah, like I went opening night. Like
Me,
my parents took me opening weekend when I was not even 4 years old yet when the first one came out.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
I've gone to every one, and like I mean, I got the damn Death Star thing behind me that the listeners can't see, but it was such a big thing, and then those prequels were just like,
yeah. So like,
But that third
like
one
everyone,
had the payoff with the fight.
So like, obviously, like,
Well, see, I'm talking about
we're
the
around
now.
we're on the same age. I'm 44. I'll be 45 this year. So like, I grew up with Star Wars. I grew up
Right.
with the original 3 movies. So I knew those. But I wasn't like something that I rewatched over and over again. Like I have
Right.
friends who all throughout our entire lives, it came out on VHS. They got it. Then they came out on Laserdisc, and then whatever. And they had every version of it.
3 different versions of it. But I still
Oh,
have the VHS.
Hold on 1 second. Literally sitting right here.
That's the one I have right there.
It's only here because I've been bouncing VHS tapes to, and it's just like it was in a box of VHS, but I've been bouncing them down to digital, and I'm like, I'm not doing this one. Like this is like I can get this anywhere.
No, you should do that one because that's the one that
That's-
not adjusted.
Yeah, you can't find that version anymore.
You son of a bitch! I'm gonna have to waste like 9 hours doing this now.
Sorry.
Trust me, it's worth it.
Well, you have to do it because
They-
those tapes will unmagnetize themselves.
Yeah.
And they'll be
They've
unreadable
been
at some
kept
point.
pretty good. Actually, a lot of those tapes, like some of them were like old Edna's tapes and like live shows and stuff. Like I started like digitizing them, and some of them actually kept pretty well considering that they were in a box in God knows what kind of condition, like hot, cold,
Right.
humid.
Yeah.
Some of them are actually pretty watchable. Actually, today, literally just today, a box of tapes showed up from my dad in Florida, who's like, he had all these tapes, and I'm like, he's like, should I get a VCR? I'm like, no. I'm like, do not get a VCR. Let me
I'll take care
put
of it.
them. Yeah, because like you run that thing through the VCR one time, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
You got any wrestling tapes in there?
I don't know what I have. I have all sorts of shit. I have all sorts of like, just like random unmarked tapes. It's like a box of. Most of them are.
Yeah,
most of it's just
you
like.
can't just be going through unmarked tapes willy nilly, especially if it's your dad. You never know what's going to be.
No,
on
not
the
my dad's tapes on it. They're like doo-wop tapes and shit.
Oh, okay.
Nothing like no.
No.
Well, I told him I'm like no weird
Right.
anything weird.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, no, but that like that was that was my first like, I don't know, like quarantine lockdown whatever thing was. I watched all of Star Wars, and like for the first time ever, I hadn't seen any of the new ones. Like the new ones are fucking dope. I was like, yeah, I wish I would have seen these in the movie theater. Like what? Like
what new ones?
The newest, the last three, the last three. Yeah, whatever. This guy's gonna. Don't get this thing pulled me in. You know.
Well, listen. First of all, this may come as a complete shock to you, but my girlfriend. I don't know how this happened, but I am dating a girl who has never watched the original Star Wars movies. But of course, what got her hooked? Fucking Baby Yoda.
No, none of that shit. I'm not talking about.
No, listen, Mandalorian is great.
Mandalorian I watched part of it. I didn't finish it, but I watched like the first few episodes.
It's fantastic. Fantastic.
I like the side movies too. I liked Solo. I liked the what's the other one? The
Rogue One.
Rogue One is great.
Rogue One is fantastic.
Those two. I was like, I could do fucking part 2s of those. Just a whole other side story thing. You know,
they're going to do that because one of the characters from Rogue One is going to have his own TV show.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not going to say I'm like immersing myself in the universe of it, but I can have an appreciation, and I can actually, for the first time, actually talk to some of my friends about some of this stuff, because they're just like, when it used to be when the conversation would start, I would fucking tune out and be like, what's on my phone right here?
Yeah,
you know?
It's like, oh, well, Len does that when I talk about comic books.
Yes, I do. It is what it is.
And sometimes if I talk about modern wrestling, he'll do that too.
Yeah, because I just don't know enough about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm just detached from it.
Yeah.
I'm more with the wrestling I can get. I mean, like I like the indie stuff that's been on too, like GCW. Actually, I have. Man, I got tickets for a deathmatch out here on the 30th of May. It's gonna be my first wrestling thing indoors at a VFW hall. I'm sure no COVID will be there.
I mean, COVID is the least thing you got to worry about in some of the deathmatch shows. Like,
might get hepatitis from schlock.
You got to worry about like light tubes flying at you.
Oh yeah, I shot some of that stuff too. So it's like now I know it's like the first time I shot it, like I was like,
you didn't know what you were getting into.
I didn't know what I was getting into, and now with the masks, I'm like, this is great. I won't be breathing in fucking light tubes.
Yeah. What do they call it? Spooky dust.
Spooky, yeah.
That's what they call it.
Yeah, one of my homies out there, this dude Nick Karp, he shoots a lot of the indie stuff. He's a photographer that
he traveled. I recognize the name.
He actually did a thing. He traveled with what's his name, Casanova Valentine. Deathmatch. What is his name on Instagram? Death Bear or something. He traveled with him across the country. Yeah, he traveled across the country with him doing these like outdoor death matches, like, and it was like the only wrestling that was really going on at the time. Yeah, because like even like AEW and shit, like AEW kind of like figured it out, but like even they were doing like empty arena shows basically. Yeah, but they were saying it was like, this is the only thing going with the crowd, which is kind of fucking crazy that it was death matches, but it was mostly because it was in people's backyards and shit. Oh yeah, it's just literally dudes just pummeling each other. You know, sure. I love it. Well,
listen, just like Jurassic Park, they say nature finds a way. Like other things find. Like people were still having like talking about music. Like people were still having secret shows.
Oh yeah,
and people were still having like secret wrestling shows and others. People find a way, and some people will be anti, but some people will take the risk.
Dude, there was shows here. Like a month ago, there was, I forget what the bands were. It's just super fucking punk bands, but they were doing like, get a generator. They were doing shows in like the LA River, or they were doing shows under the freeway, like real fucking throw and go, powered off a car battery, like wild shit. And a buddy of mine who was actually at the Madball show too. He flew out just to go to that. He was at both of them, and someone I know posted. I think it might have been him. Someone made a little meme. It was like, who did it better, LA or New York? And it's like just shots of like fucking unmasked crowd just wilding out.
Wow.
It was pretty funny. I was like, yeah, I'm like, of course, you got to turn it East Coast, West Coast, right? But
I
he
mean-
was like, yeah, he's like, I saw Madball twice this weekend, so whatever.
Yeah, because they played Brooklyn also.
What was that about? Like that one, one looked a little more like there
They
was some sort of
announced
control going on.
Well, it was a venue, and it's a venue that has like an outdoor area.
Okay.
They announced it at Tompkins. They kept it a secret until then, and they played, and they had a different lineup, of bands. But listen, like we were talking about before, people are hungry. People are dying for it. A lot of people, crazy as it is, people flew in for that show, just like you're talking about.
Yeah, my dude, one of my buddy Mike flew in for that. He was like, I saw him post a thing on I saw him post a photo on Instagram or like a story. It was just like him in an airplane, and I was like, in the back of my head, I'm like, he's going to that fucking Madball show. I'm like, I know what he's doing.
You're talking about Mike from Vegas?
Mike from Vegas?
Well, he's from Brooklyn, but he lives in Vegas now.
No. It's a different dude.
He flew in too.
Yeah, he flew in too. That's why I was asking.
That Mike flew in. A lot of people flew in because I saw a couple people that I know from very different areas. The crazy thing about that show to me also is that I saw so many people, and there were a whole ton of people that were there that I didn't even see. Like I'm seeing them post, and I'm like, wait, they're at the show? Like there were just so many people there that it was just.
Yo, who would have thought?
Out.
Who would have thought 2021 people would be flying across the country for a Madball show?
Well,
that is wild.
That's how hungry people are.
Yeah, they're
because
like
people would fly in for like
sure.
People would fly in for like the Black and Blue Bowl, or people fly in for This Is Hardcore, but people are so hungry. People are so dying for it that they were flying in for a free show in Tompkins. Crazy. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because
people do all sorts of weird shit. Trust me, I work for a very big artist where people fly around the world to go see him. They'll be like, "Oh, you guys are playing London? I'll pack my bags." So I get it. People, I mean, it's just a human thing. If you're a fan of music, you're fucking diehard. You want to go see something, like you're gonna travel to see it, and especially now when it's so limited and such a unique thing to have been a part of.
That, and we talked about the mental health thing before.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about it, Len, when we had Cody on a while back, that hardcore draws a lot of misfits, a lot of people that don't feel like they fit in anywhere else. And that's where the whole mental health thing comes into play again. Because here you are, a lot of these people, they get their interaction from this music. They get a lot of positive things from this music. And now here it is where they haven't been able to do that for an extended period of time. So all of a sudden, the opportunity comes and people are jumping on it. You can't be surprised by it. Because some people were like, I can't believe they got that many people. And I'm just like, after all this time, people are hungry for it. People need it because it's an outlet for a lot of people in a lot of different ways, whether you're a musician, whether you're just a fan. And that's why, like I said before, the positive side to it is that I saw so many people that were just absolutely fucking ecstatic about that whole day.
Well, so not to cut you off, Brian.
No,
I'm one of the people that's on the other opposite side of the spectrum, much like your friend that was perfectly happy being the curmudgeon stuck in his house and whatever. I'm literally spend my time sitting in my original studio in my basement, which has literally no windows. It's got 3 lamps in it. It's like semi-dark in here. And if I'm not in here, I'm usually at my studio, which has all the windows covered. I don't care to go outside. I don't care actually to see people. And honestly, the last year has been great. I don't miss anything really about it other than the outlet of playing music.
I miss
the only thing.
You know what I miss? Like I'm with you because I do spend a lot of time at home. Like I'm by, just it's me and my lady, and I don't really, I don't miss the kind of like doing too many things. Obviously I miss my job and traveling, but like I'm okay doing this. It's just I want there to be things available to do.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that I miss.
See, I don't even want there to be things to do. I don't. No, I don't even want to leave my house.
You want to be able to say no to something. Like,
yeah, pretty much.
You know what? I can't wait for things to start up again so that I can be like, nah, it's okay. I'm going to stay home.
See, I was like that, and I've kind of changed just a little bit. Like, I wouldn't be going out every weekend, but I really, just because my situation has changed so much over the years. Like, my kids are older, and I don't constantly have to stay with them. They're teenagers now, so it's a different situation. Yeah. So now I have my moments where like I can't be bothered, like fuck everybody, but I have those moments more and more, and Saturday kind of made me realize it even more that like, yeah, I do want to get out more and hang out more and see people a little more. Like, I'm still going to come home and probably grumble about this person or that person who's a punisher. But in the end, I really enjoy it. And I'm sure I'll feel it even more when my band plays again. And that probably won't happen till like the end of the summer. But I think
that does make it real. Makes it feel more real, like things are coming back when you can be personally involved in it, not just be a spectator. And you're like, okay, now things really are turning around. I
mean, it was fun because even listen, John Franco is a merch guy for Murphy's Law and a couple other bands, and he also handles Billy Club's merch as well. And I was hanging out with him most of the time by his table, and then when it got real busy, I was helping him out selling shit behind the table, and I actually enjoyed it. It's another thing that I missed. Like, it's just one of those little things that you kind of take for granted, and it was just nice to be back in that mix because when John's not there, I'm usually the guy that ends up handling the merch for the band, and just to be able to interact with people like that and get in the mix like that felt good to me.
Yeah, like I don't know quite yet what I'll know when it happens, but I'll know like there'll be a point, something will happen where I'll be like, man, I fucking miss this. I miss doing this. Like I've done a couple things here and there in the last year where I was like, wow, I did miss like rolling amps out onto a stage and fucking sound checking and whatever, and like just having we did a couple things, but it's not, it hasn't fully hit me that when it comes back and the shit starts for real, I'll be like, wow, like I really actually did miss this. Right now I think like in my mind I'm like I'm getting by, so I'm not worried about it. But
it hasn't been full blast yet.
No, when it's full, and like I think the first step would be seeing something like that, like seeing a show and being like, wow, I'm like, okay, this can happen again, this will happen, and like I don't know, you never really think about how I don't know, unique isn't the right word, but like special or whatever, like just seeing a live band is and seeing people perform and whatever, until you have that taken away from you for 15 months. Exactly. And then the first time you go back and you see it, you're like, it's like emotional. You're like, fuck, man, I miss this so much.
But that's what I think a lot of people experienced in the park that day. And
I hope it wasn't. I just hope it wasn't in vain. I hope it wasn't, to do it and then like now we're in fucking trouble, because there's a lot of people in my industry that are like, they fucking hate it because they see stuff like that happen, and I get it. They're being they have to be overly cautious. Like, last summer there was country artists and fucking hee-haw bands playing whatever state fairs in West Virginia or whatever, and like
shows and shit.
Yeah, and people were like, what the fuck? I'm like, why are these people playing these shows? No restrictions, no masks, nothing. And that was back in like August.
Right.
So they've had the same people in my industry just constantly like, you got to kind of like put those little fires out, because you let that spread and everyone's doing it. Everyone's out there doing their shows, and then it's fucking unchecked. And it's like, we're not there yet, you know?
That's another thing. I think no matter what, I think there are people that are never going to be happy.
No.
I think there's a lot of people that are going to complain. And I understand being cautious and being safe, but I think I think no matter what you do, some people are going to complain about it, and you just gotta. You know what it is? Roll with it.
It's just the nature of human beings to like want. They have a need for fucking being policed. You know what I mean? They need to have someone tell them what they can and can't do.
You got that.
It's like fuck the actual police, but there's also like scene police and your job police, quote unquote. You know, like there's always got to be someone to like, and like I don't know, like do we need that? Maybe like some avenues in life need that, but I feel like a hardcore scene, whatever, it did so well of like self-policing. Yeah. To the point where now it's like, well, now they self-police themselves into a situation where people on the outside would look at that and go, well, that's fucking irresponsible, you know? That's the problem. Is that like, for the most part, the hardcore scene, punk rock scene, whatever, you know, scene can always handle themselves, and people will be like, well, it's a pretty good example of how like a kind of a society exists within itself that can do its own thing. But now it's like, yeah, you are doing your own thing on this, but it's gonna, you know, it has the potential to have ramifications outside of this bubble that you have. That's, I think, what the most people are worried about, you know?
Yeah, which I understand, but as I said earlier, like somebody's gonna end up being the bad guy on this thing.
Sure.
And no matter what you do, people are going to have to dip in, and it's going to be a pain in the ass because there's going to be a lot of people that talk a lot of shit, and we'll just have to wait and see how things turn out. If there's big exposure, if there's not, we don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe there's enough people that are vaccinated that it's not going to matter that much, or maybe it's going to be a big old mess. I really don't know, but I don't think anybody knows, and that's the real problem.
We're mostly so like. Beyond working for Fall Out Boy, I worked for Chris Trainer from Bush. Chris used to be at Orange 9.
Yes. Orange 9, one of my favorite bands of all time.
Yeah. We talk a bit about art. I always like bring it up to him, but you know, and we were supposed to, and like I do stuff on and off with them. Mm-hmm. You know, I've done a few, like they were the band that I did a couple of those drive-in shows with, like big parking lot, circle stage with cars parked everywhere. I mean, I can't imagine that's any fun for anybody who's like sitting in a car. But again, like you said, people dying they just want to see something. People they need entertainment. They need something.
I always wondered about that with like the big European festivals too. They're like, it's just so spaced out.
But they also get to see a million fucking bands at once.
That's true too.
You get a ticket for that. You get some wild diversity too.
Yeah, because
depending on what it is. I mean, you could do walk-in and it could be just all, you know, metal all day, or you could be at a Reading and it's like, you know, everyone from Post Malone to you know, whatever, you know,
because
punk rock bands.
We played a couple of much smaller festivals out there. Like the biggest we played was Eperfest, and that was decent size, but it wasn't like you're 50 feet from the crowd.
No. And there's a lot of those too. There's tons of like.
Oh yeah.
There's tons of smaller festivals. I did a lot of them when I toured with Garbage. We did a lot of those smaller ones.
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, they did the big ones too, but then they would headline. Like we had one in like Switzerland or something that was like I'd never heard of, but it was like them and like the dude from Blur, from the Verve, yeah. And it was like, all right, this is a weird place I've never heard of and a weird festival I've never heard of, but like people fucking love that shit there, man. They love festivals. They love being rained on, outside, mud, it's not like showering. Len is shaking his head. He does not like this, dude.
This sounds
Len is like,
horrible.
I like bathrooms and showers and
I think it would be cool as long as you've got like
to be by myself and not near people.
See, I don't want
Gary will tell you I work This Is Hardcore fairly often, in the capacity of capturing audio for Hate 5/6's videos.
Okay.
So I have my own cove away from everyone.
Yeah.
Literally, I sit on top of the original stage at the venue, and the only people who are allowed back there are me and the video/audio crew, and that's it. So I spend the entire weekend alone while around people
in the cave,
in my own little area. And
that's shit. That's what I want.
Oh, it's generally
I've gone up
air
there.
conditioned.
I'm like, this is awesome.
It's air conditioned. I can choose to look at the stage if I want to. I can fuck around with my phone if I want to. I can kind of do whatever I need to do as long as I'm capturing the audio. So it leaves me in a position where I can be around people but avoid them at the same time.
You can be selective.
So,
for me, it's the perfect juxtaposition.
Yeah.
Because I know that I'm not able to be around people for that length of time.
It never struck me as something that was interesting to me to go to be at like a 3-day festival. Like it's like almost like when you're European, that's a rite of passage. You go a lot of my friends, especially my British friends, they're like, oh yeah, we go to Reading and Leeds, like the last year when you graduate high school or whatever, and like you go and camp out, you get mega hammered the whole weekend. Yeah. You don't shower, you screw around with a bunch of people, like, you know, you're there with your mates, you just like, and like I've only done it from the other end where I see all these people and I'm like, dude, you people are living like animals right now. What is the deal?
Yeah, and then you're back in catering like, yo, I'm glad I'm not out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I'm like, it's like
I had the same thing with Ypres because Ypres, it had rained early in the day, and I think the day before, so there's mud all over the fucking place.
They love mud. They love it.
And meanwhile, like, they have a whole area that's just a campground, so people are spending.
Oh my God.
It was a 2 or 3 day festival. I can't even remember, and they're just out there in tents for the whole weekend.
So yeah, that's how they do it. Like I'm just like struggle.
No. I'm not I was glad to have my dressing room and shit and like catering and whatnot. Like I'm not staying in no fucking tent.
But for years though, you know, like America never really had festival culture until like Coachella, Bonnaroo, all those big festivals. But because it's America, because we're like people are like they feel like that you could just buy into certain levels of comfort. They just offered it. Like Coachella's like, yeah, if you want to spend $2,000 a day to go to Coachella, you can have a private room on site with a a bar, a wet bar and whatever. And like that never existed in European festival culture. And now it's kind of creeping in where you can get like VIP packages and shit like that. Yeah, so like we've had this weird capitalist fucking weird like buy your way to comfort at a festival effect on things like not so much Reading and Leeds. That one's still pretty like you camp out and that's about it.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah,
but it is crazy like when you even seeing like not punk rock bowling. What's the fucking the Chicago Riot Fest?
Riot Fest. Yeah.
So Riot Fest, I remember like a couple years ago, before they released the tickets, you see the tiers, like the packages and stuff, and it was like the top one was $999 for the weekend. Yo, can you imagine dropping $1,000 to see like Jawbreaker? Like what is going on?
That's the thing, because if you don't, it's the same thing like amusement parks.
You're shitting in a porta potty for 3 days, and
that's what I mean. It's like amusement parks where if you don't like, Len, we were just talking about Great Adventure a couple weeks ago.
I miss Great Adventure.
Yeah. Well, Great Adventure,
I live
it's like
17 minutes from it.
Oh, man.
But if you don't get a fast pass, you're going to spend half the fucking day in line. Disney parks,
but here's the thing, though.
Same thing. Like,
it's like once everyone has the fast pass, then no one has it. You know what I mean? It's like we would say this all the time about like having pre-check at the airport. It's like if everybody has pre-check, then no one has it. It means like everyone's in the same goddamn line.
Then the shorter line is the regular line.
The shorter line is the one where you take all your clothes off.
But that's the thing.
We didn't talk about that actually. But for me, since I only live maximum 20 minutes away from this location.
Uh-huh.
I show up early, and I'll go. If I'm on my kick of going to Great Adventure, we'll be in the parking lot at 9:30. Doors open at 10. I'm on my first ride at 10:10, and I'm home by 1:30 because that's when the crowd is like popping, and I'm like, nah, I'm good. I got all my rides in early.
I like that.
And I'll come back tomorrow. Like I there are times where I would go on like a Friday morning, Saturday morning, and a Sunday morning, get my rides in the first couple hours, and
this is
go
your local
home.
park.
Right.
This is where you go to hang out.
Oh, sure.
And
I like that.
So if you get the season pass, it's like $80. So
I was going to say,
two
if you get the
trips.
season pass, it's totally worth it. And
And
living
then
down
once
there, why not?
And once you add on the parking, it's like $110.
Right.
But you get VIP parking, so you pull up and you park as close as you want. You walk in, you go on the rides, and then you're like, I'm going home. You go home, and then it's like 7 o'clock, and you're like, well, it's only a 20-minute drive. I'll catch the end of the shift. You can go at night too, when the crowd is waned and the sun ain't out.
Yeah.
I'm fat, and I don't want to be out in the middle of the summer sun. Like I want to be on the rides, and then I want to be away from people. So the theme of this show is I want to be away from people.
Yeah, look,
But
that's not a bad thing to happen. I actually, not that it has anything to do with amusement parks, but I do think that I hope that certain things continue to stick around post, whatever the end of this is. Like stuff like going to the grocery store and there being like a line where people are spaced out instead of all being crammed in on top of each other. Like some of those things are already starting to fucking creep back to the way they were. And I'm like, God damn it, why can't this just stay the way it was? I'm like, I actually kind of enjoyed this. But like shit like that, like, I don't know, like amusement parks. Like, what are amusement parks like right now? Like, what are they like?
I haven't been. I don't know.
I mean, from what I've seen, because I watch a lot of videos that people do from amusement parks, and like the Disney parks have started to creep back to normal. Like they still space out the people on the lines, but like.
But you can't. You can't physically do it. You can't physically. Once they start operating these things at full capacity, like you don't have the physical space to have a line that's spaced out 6 feet apart with 300 something whatever people in it.
Right.
They were saying this about some club in England or something. They were talking about. They were like our club capacity is 2,000 people. If you want us to test everyone who comes in and have everyone spaced out fucking 2 meters or whatever they do, 6 feet there. He's like, we'd have a queue that went from here to some other neighborhood in London. They were like a mile away. He's like, it would literally be 1 mile. This line would be 1 mile long.
Oh yeah.
He's like, you cannot do it. It's like, at some point we have to figure out a different system, because if we're gonna keep spacing people out, so like, you can't do that in a park either. Like if you went into Disney World, Disneyland, and it was literally every single ride had fucking lines that were like
the
hundreds
lines
of
would be
feet
all
long,
wrapped together.
it would just be you'd just be walking through lines. That's like the whole park.
But that's what I was starting to say when we were talking about the festivals also, that now they've realized that if you pack all these people in, they're going to make more money, because then those people are going to pay extra so they can go to the nice porta potties, and they can go, they'll pay extra so that they don't have to stand in line for food and all that other shit. So it's the same thing. That's why I brought up the theme park thing, because now the festivals are starting to do the theme park thing where it's like, okay, you can just be regular person sleeping in your tent in the mud, or you can get this VIP thing with your own private little cabana or whatever the fuck.
Yeah,
and access to the VIP bathrooms and all this other stupid horse shit. But that's how they'll make more money, because it's a squeeze. And that's what theme parks have been doing for years. Because, like I said, Great Adventure, if you don't have a fast pass, you're spending half of your day standing in line. Because I did it. I haven't been there in at least 16 years. because I haven't been there since my kids were born. And the last time I was there, I spent half the friggin' day in line.
Yeah,
you know,
because I live so close, I don't have that issue. I'm just like, the lines are long. I'm going home. Literally,
I've never considered that as like that's a weird thing to even think about. Like, oh yeah, you live really close to an amusement park. You can just go. You could be the first person in line there and just go and bust through the park and be done with it.
I think about that because I see a lot of these people on YouTube. There's because I watch a lot of these videos of these people that live near Disney, so they do like their Disney vlog, and they go there like all the time. They have their season pass and everything else, or they got the Disney Vacation Club where they stay in the different hotels all the time with points or whatever, and they go and that's how I see how busy some of those places are, because they do the videos and they're just showing you how packed the place is. Because California was closed, but they're opening. Florida was closed for a while. Then they opened up again, and I watched it. They would do the videos, and you'd see the place just empty. And over time, you see it start to fill up again. And now it's like almost back to the way they still limit the capacity, but you wouldn't know just by looking at it because it looks like the place is fucking mobbed.
Disney out here is opening up. I think this week, actually. Yeah, they're opening back up to. I don't know what the percentage is, whatever. And oddly enough, I've not been to Disney once since I moved here.
No kidding.
Disney culture out here is weird, man. Not weird. It's like, just like real strong. Like people have very strong opinions about Disney, and like people that I know, but like I don't know, man. Disneyland, people are very like they go. I know people, when it was normal times, like going like once a week. Like they'd go to Disney every single week, sometimes more. And grow friends who are like there's like all these weird subcultures of like punk rock gangs that go to Disney. You know what I mean? Like they're like social clubs, like punk rock social clubs that go to Disney. Or like goth, they have like goth days and shit. It's weird, man. It's like you see like these goth cholas like at Disney, and you're just like, what is happening right now? Like mind blowing. Like I've never been to Disneyland ever. I've been to Disney World many times, but Disneyland I've never been, and I should just go. It's like 30 minutes away from my house. Like I don't know what it is. Like people go all the fucking time.
Oh yeah,
and they go and they take the same goddamn photos and they post the same. I'm like, how many times are you gonna go on the Tower of Terror, dude? Like, you've been on this thing, like Space Mountain. How many times are you going to Space Mountain? Like,
whoa!
I'll
go on Space Mountain.
I'll fuck with Space Mountain.
I used to do that when I was young. My family used to go every year, and we would wait for them to open. They'd pull the chain down, and you could go in. Me and my brother would race to Space Mountain, and we would get on it, get off, keep getting back on until the line was too long. And I think we definitely hit 5 times, maybe 6.
Yeah, I did that one time in Florida. Obviously, the only one I've ever been to when I was a kid, and me and my cousin Ralphie got separated from our family. It was just me and him, so we just went to Space Mountain and we just rode it over and over again until someone finally came to check on us.
Until somebody found you.
Back in the 80s, it was wild. You could just lose a kid at Disneyland and like
it wouldn't matter then.
Oh yeah, they were just like, maybe they like start asking around. It's like, have you seen my son? His name's Brian and he's wearing whatever. Like some creep is just looking for you now. Yo, that was crazy.
Well, that's when I used to
Brian,
go.
Me and you were the same age.
Okay.
I was born in '76, so we had the same timeline. The '80s was a wild west of kids just running wild. I think it was the last 10 years that kids truly ran wild.
Yeah, and like the '90s kids will try to claim that they're like, oh, bro. I'm like, nah, dude, you guys are already starting to nerd out on the internet and stuff. Like we didn't have that. We didn't have that until I was like in late high school and early like after high school. Really,
it was really after high school.
Yeah, like we didn't have phones, nothing. Like we just like fucking, you just kind of just.
Somebody had a beeper. That was like the big deal.
No joke. No joke. I don't remember what filled my time. I don't remember. Like it's so crazy to like think like I don't know what I used to do. like in the time that I spend bullshitting on the internet or whatever I'm doing, now I have like little tasks and stuff.
You
to keep
listen
myself
to
busy. But,
music.
like, what the fuck did I? Yeah, did I just literally sit in my room in bed and like stare at the ceiling listening to CDs? Like, is that what I did? I went to shows. I played
You went
music.
to shows. You played music. You listened to music. You practiced,
Fucking hell.
and you hung out with you actually hung out with your friends.
I know we would hang.
Face.
We would do this in person in my friend's basement. You know, like, yeah, it's crazy, man. Like,
yeah, because I've only got a couple of years on you guys. I was born in '73 and
same birthday though, right? October 14th. No, you're 15th, right?
13th.
13th. Okay, 13th. So yeah. I was like, because me, you. I was like, I always think it's me, you, Doc. Me and Doc have the same birthday.
Okay.
We're both October 14th, and it's like, yeah.
You're
So
a day later.
I always like for some reason I'm like I always remember that. Like I know it's whatever.
Well, then I'm younger than you. I'm the youngest person on the call today. Right.
That's rare. That's very rare. We're usually the cranky old men.
Yeah.
So
got a new old man on the show. I'm the young buck pulling up the rear by a fucking month.
Oh man, that's funny. But yeah, talking about the European festivals and stuff, it's like that whole whole different, though. business model now is completely different. But I don't know. Listen, I'm old. I'm fat. I'm not sleeping in no fucking tent in the mud. Like I don't even want to stand there.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't even want to sleep on the couch. Like sometimes I have to stay at my dad's house. We talked about him earlier.
Yeah.
I sometimes have to stay at his house to take care of him, and I got to end up sleeping on the fucking couch, and that fucks me up for like a whole week. My body is not prepared for anything other than the comforts of a goddamn bed. Dude. I'm not sleeping in a tent or like in the bed of a truck or any of that bullshit. That's just a recipe for disaster at this age.
Yeah, man. Listen. Last week or 2 weeks ago was the last week. 2 weeks ago, my girlfriend's parents were here, and this is a small house. It's a house. It's not an apartment. It's a house, but it's a small house, and we really only have we have the living room and a kitchen, and then we have our bedroom back here, and then this room here is like the spare room, and it's filled with my shit. I have like my work table in here. I have my whole computer set up, like all my shit's in here. It's like it's my office, and so while they're here, they're older, so we just like sleep in our bed, and I'll blow up an air mattress, and I will
and end up on the floor at 4 in the morning.
6 in the 6 in the morning.
Mattresses. Didn't we just talk about air mattresses?
Dude, 6 in the morning, I wake up and my elbow is like digging, like the thing is deflated enough, and I'm a big dude, so like it's deflated.
That's what we were talking about. Like big dudes and air mattresses are not a good combo.
There's a small like back behind here. You can see it's like a small couch back there, but it's too. I'm like too small for like. Yeah, like the one in the living room is fine. So she was like sleeping in the living room, and I'm just back here in my, because I'm up late. I'm like recording things and doing whatever, and then eventually I'm just like, well, I'll go blow up the mattress and sleep. And like every day, like, that was the thing too. I was like, I didn't want to wake up her parents, so like I would like turn the, I'd blow it up a little earlier, and then by the time it was time for me to get in it, like
it was already
it was like starting to lose some steam, But whatever. It's like I'm camping in my own house, But I trust me, man. I'm all about. If I go see a concert afterwards, I want to go lay in a bed. I don't want to I don't want to roll out my sleeping bag and sleep in the mud, with a bunch of drunk idiots in tents. That doesn't sound like fun to me.
We've had that conversation in my band because we're all in our 40s now. The band is about to celebrate the 25-year anniversary, and I've been in the band 20 years at this point. And we all did stuff before that. So, like, we're just at the point now, it's like, okay, we're adults, we got decent jobs, we got money, like, we're not sleeping on couches. Like, we'll go get hotel rooms, we're at the point now, it's like, we want to be comfortable. We got the loot.
Well, there's a difference too. Like when you're younger, and you're first you start in a band out, even in your 20s or whatever.
Yeah.
You start out in a band and you're going out on tour. There's like a thing in the back of your head where like, we're gonna fucking make it. We're doing this because we're gonna like, just it's gonna propel us to the next thing. Mm-hmm. As you get older and you realize you're like, you know what? I'm just doing this because I really fucking love doing this.
Yeah.
And I'm older now and I can afford some level of comfort. And
exactly.
I'm a grown ass man. I want to sleep in a bed in a hotel room. Like, then that's what you do. Like, you don't have to. You don't have to
feel like sharing beds anymore, or having one dude on the floor. Like,
no. And I do this too, man. Like, honestly, I'm like, it may sound like a little bullshit clause or whatever, but when I sign up to work for a band, whether it's one-off or whatever, like a full tour, I'm like, just so you know, I'm a 44-year-old grown-ass man. I'm like, I don't share hotel rooms with other dudes. Mm-hmm. Like, I just need my privacy. Like, every 3-4 days, you drop $100 on a hotel room. If that's going to make or break me being on tour with you, then maybe this isn't the tour for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you got to look out for these people who are on this thing, because you can't just be pinching pennies and trying to, like, I get it. I get that there's someone at, on the other end, as you've said before, counting the beans.
Yeah.
Like, like there's someone on the other end that's counting that stuff and is like, well, we could shave off 1 or 2 hotel rooms and whatever. I'm like,
right.
If that's your guy running your show for you, I do not need to, I do not need to be on that. I don't need to be on that tour,
Yeah, because that's the same dude that'll be handing you a whack sandwich instead of a decent meal.
Right. I mean, you've been there. We've all been there. Like, of course. You show up to a venue and they're like, yeah, it's a food buyout today. And like, they hand you, literally this happened to me like 3 years ago. I was on tour with some little metal band. I got handed a $5 bill in the Bay Area. You know what you can get for $5 in San Francisco? Nothing.
Jack shit. Nothing. Nothing at all.
Potato chips.
I think I was able to get 1 slice of pizza and a soda, and I had to throw in $2 of my own. I was like, you know what, man? I'm like, I'm over this shit. Like, I'm, again, grown man. I have some standards. You got to set standards, and I think I sure hope that when this shit comes back, when we start touring again, that people aren't kind of compromising their standards just to get back on the road.
Right.
I get that some of these artists haven't had any income or any money coming in the last year, but that doesn't mean that I'm not worth what I was worth a year ago.
Exactly.
And it doesn't mean that all of a sudden I'm like, I'm cool with flying in the middle seat and sharing a hotel room with someone. Like, I'm sorry, man. Like, it's like we have to maintain a standard,
That's one of the things that I'm worried about when things pick up again, especially for people that work at your level, where they're going to try to cut corners and stuff like that. Like for somebody at my level, like, there's not many corners that you can cut. You know what I mean? Like we're already breaking even anyway.
Sure.
So like, we're hoping
that's 90%. That's more than 90% of bands in the world. Like, they're just doing it because they fucking love doing it, and you might break even, Like,
yeah,
that's the hope.
I mean, in the end, we don't even break even, because if we break even, like, we already spent however much money before that.
Sure.
But whatever. But we're not doing it for that anyway, because if we were, we would have been out long ago.
Right.
But for guys that are touring regularly, we've talked before about the mathematics of it and just how is that going to work. Like,
it's going to have to. I don't know how else to put it. Like, it's going to have to, because what's going to happen is, if you can't offer me, and I'm speaking hypothetically, because I know my guys, not to be like, my guys are taking care of me, but like, I know they're taking care of me. I've been with Fall Out Boy for 14 years. Like, if right now they're like, well, we suddenly have to cut your pay, like, it'd be really fucking weird. But if I was in a position, if I was in some other position where they're like, all right, we can only offer you X amount of money, and I'm like, can't do it. They're just going to hire, it's going to bring down, it's like bringing down the property value. It's gonna bring, like it's gonna bring down everyone's rates. Like it's gonna go from being like X amount a week to X minus one. Then it keeps going down as they hire someone who's like, I'm just willing to do whatever, and that's it's gonna happen.
I compare it to what I've seen over the years in the corporate world, working office jobs, where they'll get some kid right out of school because they're cheap and they'll do it.
Right.
And in the end, your quality goes down. But they don't give a shit.
To be fair, some of those people are good. I mean, I've definitely have come across some techs and whatever in my world that, it's their first tour or first couple tours, and they're just really good at their jobs, and they will go on. Those people will go on to have longer careers if they stick it out. If they stick out being, getting paid, peanuts at first, and then kind of getting that first big paycheck, they will land with a good artist. But you got to sift through that, and like I think right now it's almost like it's going backwards. Like people who maybe were out of the game for a while might come back to work for cheap because they want to get back in. And there's going to be a shortage of crew. There's going to be a shortage of venues and a shortage of crew. So like there's a lot of weird shit that's going to happen, and it's not really going to show its face until next year. 2022 that's going to be when everyone's going to be out at the same, trying to book the same venues at the same time. All tours are going to be piling on top of each other.
Right. Well,
people are going to, it's going to be, it might actually hurt things in a way,
maybe. I could see that. I think 2021 is going to be limited, but I think it's going to go back to my idea of dipping your toe in the water.
Yeah.
Where I think you're not going to have full-blown stadium tours, but people might do some stuff here and there just to see how it goes and just to get out and flex the muscle. But you're not like I don't think they're going to do that Def Leppard Motley Crue tour this summer.
Ooh, I'm not saying I know anything about it.
I mean, I think a lot of stuff is going to get tested out and isn't going to go full blast. No, just because
there's going to be some errors.
I think people are going to be nervous about it.
You're going to have there's going to be things that have a chain effect. It's going to, there'll be the one show that, someone comes out of it testing positive, or like some crew gets sick or whatever.
That's what I was
but
just
like
say that like a tour gets.
A tour is going to get. Yeah, and that's why they're really pushing for especially at the level of like doing these big Live Nation tours or whatever. They're trying to they want to make sure because there's no such thing as insurance for it. There's no.
What was it? I think it was Exodus and Death Angel and Testament were all on tour together in Europe, and like a bunch of them all got sick. Like like they canceled in the middle of the tour because that's when COVID started shutting everything down. And like a bunch of the guys got sick on that tour.
I don't know how Terror was in Europe until like April 20th or so. It was like some wild. They were there for like till the bitter end. Like stuff was just like shutting down all around them. I was talking because Martine lives like pretty close to me. I'm friends with him and his brother Dre, and we were just like hanging out like when they got like this is probably in the summer at some point. And he was like, we were in Europe until like it was like past the danger level where people were like, I don't know if you should be in Europe anymore at all. I mean, somehow none of them, I don't think any of them got sick. Like they just, maybe shows were getting canceled and stuff, but I can't even imagine being that far away from home. Things are getting canceled. Shit is shutting down. Like, what do you even do? It's just like, what's the point? Like, just go home, But stuck it out. They were probably like one of the last bands in the world to play a show at one point,
crazy.
Yeah,
that's wild to think about.
Yeah, but I don't know. It'll come back. We just like you said, there's gonna be some hiccups though. I think there's gonna be a few hiccups here and there before it's smoothed out, and then I think
there's going to be a bunch of hiccups just in general, not just with that stuff, but just with everything, with city life and stuff like that. There's going to be outbreaks. There's going to be.
I mean, you got sports going full blast right now in Texas. They got 50,000 people in a baseball stadium, whatever. Like, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. We'll find out soon, and if the shit is bad, it's going to just be just another long, boring summer. Not much going on.
Let me ask you this, Brian. What is it that you actually do when you're on the road? Because I don't know what you do. So you say you're out and you're doing things, but I'd like to know more.
Well, basically, I'd say a backline tech, but it's focusing on guitars because I suck at drums. But I
just learned how to tune drums the last 6 months. This part of the thing that I've been doing.
20-something years of playing, however long, 30 years of playing music, I still cannot set up a drum kit. I can open the stands and stuff, and I can look at them and go, I don't know where any of this shit goes or how you like it. But,
I'm just talking about actually physically tuning the drums. They use this thing called DrumBot. It's like an electronic tuner. My drums have never sounded so good.
A lot of drum techs would be like, fuck that thing, but if you're not a drum tech, that's totally fine. There's tons of things that people use for guitar work that I'm like, what the fuck would you use that for? But if you're not a professional person, like someone who does this for a living, you might not, you just I don't know, I just use this once in a while to change my strings, dude. Give me a break. No, my day-to-day on tour is wake up, dump a truck of gear, full of, mostly bass and guitar gear that I deal with. Set up, I build a lot of racks. I build a lot of just pedal boards, all sorts of shit. I do. A lot of it's just guitar maintenance, day-to-day, basic maintenance, which rock stars can't do that on their own. I'd bet you a lot of these dudes that I work with would be very hard pressed to even turn on their rigs, let alone do maintenance on anything. With the exception of Chris Traynor. He is very hands-on with his stuff, but he plays a fractal, so that's easy. So it's a computer.
Yeah.
But I built him his pedal boards and I built him his his rigs and stuff. That's a lot of the prep work that I do. But when I'm on tour, that's my day-to-day is just it's a thing on tour within the touring world where backline people. I'm not saying we get a little ribbing because we're considered the white glove crew or we're the last in, first out, because everything goes in first, sound, lights, all that shit's got to get put into the venue and it's got to go up, and then we're the last ones in. So these dudes have been up since 5, 6 in the morning. We rolling at the crack of noon. We're ready to
they've been doing heavy lifting since dawn.
I roll in with my iced coffee. I'm looking around this place looks great. All right,
hey guys, good job.
Let me get the local stagehands to push my stuff in place now. But listen, man, I joke about that, but I'm not saying I earned it, but I earned it. Fucking 20-something years of humping gear around, my own. I've done plenty of physical work to the point where I am not going to take a job now where it's oh, you're going to have to pack the trailer yourself and do all, I need help. I'm an old man. But I'm not saying it. That's it's fun. I will still jump in and fucking help. But I'm saying it's definitely more comfortable at the level that we tour at. Everyone's job is very specialized. Everyone has a very
it's all very structured, right?
Right. If you work on lights, you might work on just the stage left lights. You work on when I'm with Fall Out Boy, I only deal with Pete. I only do his bass. That's it. I don't worry about anybody else's shit. Someone else might be having a fucking bitch of a show on the other side of the stage with amps blowing up, and I just go, I grab that iced coffee again, and I'm like, hey, what's going on over there?
Hey, that's boy.
I
that's
I dropped my amp lineup in the photos here. I don't know if they came through. In the chat.
In the chat. Okay.
But can you help me hook those up?
The chat right now. I don't have anything in the chat
either.
Oh, weird. How about now? Is that better?
I don't see. Oh, there it is. There it is.
Oh, there it goes.
It's coming.
That's what
just
said.
A download.
Only accept things from people you trust.
I do. I trust this guy.
I don't trust.
I trust this guy that I just met.
I don't trust him, and I've been friends with him for 20-something years.
Does it open in the thing?
I don't know. It should have just been in there.
Oh no!
I hit
it
open.
downloaded itself.
Yeah, it downloads, and then I'm on a Mac, so it opened in preview.
Yeah, I got the preview. Oh, that is quite a. That is. Is that your studio stuff?
Yeah, it's over at Landmine
Yeah,
Studios.
you get that. You get that the Sound City down there. That's nice. I like that.
Did you open
This
both
dude?
of them?
This dude that I worked with on Guns N' Roses, the guitar player Guns N' Roses, one of the obviously not Slash,
Okay,
but
let me ask you this: when were you working for Guns N' Roses?
there was a few different times.
Were you there when Bumblefoot was there?
Yes, I was.
I'm
Ron,
friendly.
dude, Monthal.
I'm friendly with Ron.
Oh, he's like this. He's talking like this.
Yeah.
Hey. He's my favorite. His hot sauce is good too, man. Oh, now I'm on the other thing. This is your bass rig.
Landmine.
Oh, I have that dual tire. I have a couple of these things. Anyway, I was working.
Almost opened in his studio in Princeton, New Jersey. Well, just outside of Princeton, New Jersey.
Oh, he lives in Princeton. I didn't even.
Yeah.
I didn't even.
Well, he lives actually in New Jersey somewhere. I won't give away exactly where he lives, but his Bumblefoot Studios is in.
Oh, okay, cool.
Like just outside of
I
Princeton.
like Bumble. He seemed by the time that I was with them. So this was 2012.
He was probably
2012, 2013. He was pretty checked out. Like he was pretty like.
I can imagine.
He was on autopilot. Like that band was a fucking weird jumble of humans. I was working for Tommy Stinson at the time, and Richard was in the band too. But yeah, Bumble just seemed. They had 3 guitarists. It was Bumble, Richard, and then DJ Ashba from 6 a.m. playing guitar too, and that was just like, 3 guitars in a band. That's a bold move. Mm-hmm. And then to have like 2 keyboardists, it was just like bonkers. Like
it was a lot.
Man. There was a lot going on. And then I did 2018 with them, working for Duff, because Duff's had the same guitar or same bass tech since Appetite, since 87 or whatever.
Right.
This guy, Mike Mayhew, McBob is his name, and McBob, he had to have surgery and couldn't do a tour, and him and his brother Tom have both worked for Guns N' Roses forever. And Tom calls me and he's like, "Diaz, get your passport and go to Europe." I'm like, what's going on? He's like, "You're filling in for my brother. You're coming to Europe." Just giving me like real harsh, like. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, let me figure this. I was in Vegas when he called, and I'm like, it's like after a show. I'm like having some drinks. I'm like, what is happening? I'm like, get off the phone. I'm like, I think I just got asked to go tech for Duff McKagan. I don't know what's going on. And like,
right.
Ended up doing that, and that was rad. And Duff's cool, good dude, and like, Slash, he's Slash.
Yeah, it's Slash.
It's a fucking. I have a funny story about that though, because my very first. We had done rehearsals. We had been in Van Nuys doing rehearsals. That's where they have a studio there and rehearsing there. Right. We were there for a month every day, just running through the set. I don't know how many times they need to run through Sweet Child of Mine, but they do. You think by now they would have nailed it, but they still got to do it.
Practice makes perfect.
And I'm basically sitting there, just kind of babysitting the thing, just learning, all the, whatever songs, the set list. And first show is in Germany, in Berlin, at the Olympic Stadium. And we have like 2 setup days, and there's going to be a rehearsal day, and then there's a show day. So we're in the stadium for like 4 days, whatever. And the first 2 setup days, the band they're not even in Europe yet. They haven't even flown in. They fly in the night before. Duff is going to fly in the day of the first rehearsal because his daughter was like graduating or something. So he's going to get a private flight to Berlin, whatever. He didn't make it in time. And I get a message from our tour manager who is like, Duff isn't going to make rehearsal, but Slash and Axl are on site and they want to rehearse. So how many songs do you know on bass?
Oh my God. Oh shit.
You're like, So
I
no,
was
but let's do it anyway.
I mean, I did know. I knew enough. I knew like six songs.
Okay.
That includes the Misfits cover.
Wow.
And we ran through all that shit. Like, I gotta find the photo of it. But there's a photo of me on stage playing bass with Guns N' Roses, the full fucking thing, and me and Slash, and then there's like another one with like me and Axl. It was
wild,
real crazy. We did Rocket Queen, and we did Rocket Queen, and I'm like, they tend to jam that one out real hard live, like where it's like 15 minutes long. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, I'm like, God, I hope I hope they're not going to punish me with this. And I'm like, and I like the last second before it starts, I just, like this drum start, and I'm like looking at Slash, I'm like, short version? And he just like turns around and like walks away. I'm like, oh fuck. We just did the whole thing. He's doing a talk box solo. I'm like, God. And I'm just
wow.
Over. It's pretty fun though. He asked me if I knew Estranged, and I said, no, it's too many parts. And he just goes, Diaz says it's too many parts. We can't do Estranged. He's like, we'll just cut it forever.
Oh my God. He's
like joking around with me, and I'm like, oh my God, what is happening? But it was an experience. That was a good one. It was a good throw and go, just like
that's wild.
Under the gun with that guy.
I am Gary Muttley. He is Len Carmichael. We are the upgradepodcast.net for all the links and all that fun stuff. And we'll see you again soon. Peace.
Peace.
Later.